I want to welcome you back to Enemy of My Truth, and I'm so glad that you're here. Today, I want to talk about intuition, what it actually is, and how it shows up in our lives. You know, we hear people say things like, listen to your intuition or follow your inner knowing, but what does that actually mean? So, today, I want to spend a little time exploring what intuition really is, what it can feel like, and begin to make a little more sense of this inner guidance that so many of us experience and have. And for those of you who find yourself wanting to go a little deeper after listening to today's episode, we're currently having a spring sale on all my online courses, including Foundations of Intuition 101. And you can use the code FIREHORSE40 at the checkout to receive 40% off. Again, that's FIREHORSE40 at the checkout to receive 40% off. All the links will be provided in the show notes. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in. So, have you ever had a moment where you just knew something and later realized you were absolutely right? Maybe someone you met instantly felt like something was off, or maybe you almost made a decision and something inside of you quietly said, wait, don't do that. Perhaps you suddenly had clarity about something that had been confusing you for weeks. These moments can feel mysterious, almost like something appeared out of nowhere. That experience, that quiet inner signal, that's your intuition. And today I want to spend some time talking about what intuition actually is, because most of us are walking through life with a very real internal guidance system, but we're not always sure how to recognize it. So, what intuition really is at its core is a form of inner knowing. It's a way of perceiving information that doesn't move step by step in the way that logic does. Instead, intuition arrives all at once. And it can feel like clarity appearing in a single moment. You might not have a long explanation for it because it just arrives. You might not be able to list the reasons why you feel the way that you do, but something inside of you simply says, this feels right, or something about this isn't right. You just know. And, I have found that knowing often arrives before any obvious evidence appears to support it. Many people describe intuition as a gut feeling, but it's actually much broader than that. Intuition can show up through your body, through physical sensations like a gut feeling, through goosebumps, through sudden clarity, and just knowing something, or through a shift in your emotional state of just this inner awareness, or through just a quiet sense of certainty about something you need to do. And it can even show up as a feeling of calm when something is just simply aligned. It comes in very subtly, but very peacefully. And I think that many people doubt their intuition, and because it can be very subtle, it doesn't usually arrive loudly. Your intuition doesn't argue with you. It doesn't try to convince you. It's not this gnawing feeling necessarily. It simply just shows up as a quiet signal. And that's because it is so subtle, it can be easy for us to not recognize it and we dismiss it. And especially in a world that teaches us to rely heavily on external proof or validation. But intuition doesn't always operate through proof. It very much operates through your perception and awareness. Intuition notices things beneath the surface. It can recognize energy, the tone of something. It can see patterns. small cues that our deeper awareness is picking up on, even when we can't explain them yet. And your intuition just has this running current to know what's going on. And another place people may get confused is between your intuition and imagination. And this comes up a lot when I'm teaching, for good reason, because those two can feel like they live in similar space. And both of them do come and arise internally within us, and both can appear as images and thoughts and feelings, but they usually have very different qualities. Imagination, I have found, tends to have a storyline. It kind of has a root system, and you can often trace where it came from. Maybe you started thinking about something and your mind begins to build a scenario around it. Like you're attached to it. And, you might imagine what could happen, what someone might say, or how something might play out. And there's usually this thread that you can follow because you're attached to it again, where intuition feels different. Intuition, I have found, often appears suddenly. Uh, and it can almost feel, and a lot of the times it feels very random. You weren't necessarily thinking about the situation, and then something just drops into your awareness. You might have a feeling or this quick realization or just this quiet knowing, and it comes out of nowhere. There's no root system with it. It just arrives quickly and simply, and I found like there's just no long narrative attached to it, like your imagination has. And then it often just disappears as quickly as it arrived. And again, that's why people sometimes miss it, because it comes in so quick. Um, and again, your intuition isn't trying to build a story for you. It's just simply offering a signal. It's offering information that is relevant for that moment. And so let's take a look at, like, what does our intuition actually feel like in everyday life? Because it's always with us all the time. A lot of times intuition will be there with us, and it shows up when you are meeting somebody new. You might feel instantly comfortable around them, or you might feel a subtle hesitation that you can't fully explain yet. Nothing obvious has happened, but your deeper awareness, your intuition is picking up on something below the surface. And sometimes intuition shows up in decision making. For instance, you might be weighing different options, thinking about them for days, and then suddenly one choice just feels clear immediately. It's not forced, it doesn't feel complicated, it just simply feels right. And other times, intuition appears as a pause. For instance, you might be about to say yes to something. You might be about to sign something or agree to something, and something inside of you quietly says, stop or just wait. And that moment of pause can be intuition giving you space to step back and look again, that it may not be the right decision. And so, again, intuition is going to show up in that way for you, giving you that subtle guidance, that subtle knowing, which is so important. And speaking of that knowing, I talk a lot about this in my psychic classes, all around clear knowing, and I refer to this as claircognizance, which is one of the psychic abilities that we nurture and we grow and we strengthen. And your claircognizance is your clear knowing. And for some people, intuition shows up as what's often called clear knowing. And this is when information simply just appears in your awareness without a long process behind it. It's instant. You just know something within your whole being, your whole knowing, your whole body. And this is especially common for people who naturally see patterns in life. People who tend to think in big pictures rather than step sequences. We tend to see this a lot with entrepreneurs. Myself, I'm dyslexic and I'm very much a big picture thinker. And so big picture thinkers tend to see the big picture without giving you the details of how they get there. I just tend to know the outcome of things, and I've always operated that way. And so I think they share the same space. And again, people who see the big picture also are wired to notice relationships between things. They may sense themes happening and they recognize energetic patterns between people and situations. And intuition, most of the time and often, operates through those patterns of recognition of themes, of patterns, to then make decisions and choices. And it's kind of like seeing the direction something is moving um, before the full picture is actually played out. It's like we just step forward without knowing all the parts that it takes to get there. But when you have this clear knowing, you just know it to be so true that that's what you want to do. And another place that your intuition shows up is your body. It can be one of the clearest ways intuition communicates. And you might feel, for instance, like a tightening in your stomach, a sense of calm in your chest, maybe a feeling of expansion or openness when something feels really aligned and feels really good. You know, your body is constantly receiving information from your environment. And sometimes intuition shows up through those subtle physical signals. And again, it's your awareness and your intuition saying, hey, can you pay attention to this? And the more that we can recognize those physical sensations in our bodies, we can start to trust what we're getting and start to see the pattern showing up as intuition starts to speak to us through our body. And I also think one of the easiest ways, and one of the ways we can look at our intuition, is to look back at your life. Um, you know, think about moments where you had a feeling about something. Maybe you sensed something about a situation that later turned out to be true. Or maybe you ignored a quiet inner signal and later thought, I knew that. So many of us have experiences like this and we dismiss them. And those moments are reminders that intuition has probably been guiding you far more often than you realize. And again, the real practice with intuition isn't about forcing it or trying to manufacture it. It's about becoming more aware of those subtle signals when they appear and taking the time to slow down enough to notice them and really trusting quiet nudges instead of immediately dismissing them. Because, you know, the more attention you give to your intuition, the easier it becomes to recognize and the relationship that deepens through the awareness. And I have found that where we hold our intuition and where our intuition comes through is the same space where our trust is and how we trust ourselves. And where we have trust is where we have our intuition. They dance in that same space together. As we start to recognize both of those, and the more we begin to listen to our intuition, we begin to trust the process. And, you know, intuition isn't something reserved for psychics or highly evolved people. It is a natural human ability we're all able to harness. It's the part of you that can sense truth beyond what is immediately visible. And the more that we slow down and pay attention to these inner signals, the more we begin to notice that our intuition has been there all along, quietly offering this guidance and just waiting for us to listen. For those of you who want to dive a little deeper into understanding and strengthening your intuition, I'm currently offering 40% off my online courses, including Foundations of Intuition. And you can use the code FIREHORSE40 at the checkout and receive 40% off. Again, that's code FIREHORSE40 at the checkout to receive 40% off all online courses, including Foundations of Intuition 101. All the links will be provided in the show notes. And I want to thank you for spending this time with me today. I hope this episode helped you see that your intuition is already there, quietly guiding you. And until next time, take a moment to slow down, to listen inward, invite that intuition forward, and begin to trust what you already know. Take good care and much love.